Welcome to session 5, our last session in Holding Hope. And in this session today, we'll be exploring lots of twists and crossing the midline of the body. And we're focusing on this because twisting or crossing the midline of the body helps with neural processing, which helps with trauma. So I welcome you to find your own pace in this class, to remember that everything is an invitation that you can accept or decline at any time, no questions asked. And we'll also be ending the class in a supported Shavasana, resting pose. And if you would like to explore that, you might have a chair or a wall space. You don't need much. This right here would be enough. Or if you have like a coffee table nearby or a couch, that could also work as well for the options that we'll have towards the end of class. So I welcome you to find a shape of your choice that will allow you to begin to find the present moment, whether that be sitting or child's pose, whatever feels welcome to you. I'm going to take a child's pose and you might join me there. And if you do take this shape, you might even explore having an additional blanket so that you can add a bit of coverage and likewise a little bit of protection, a little bit of safety. So in our child's pose, if you're choosing to take this shape, you might allow the knees to come as wide as your mat. However, they don't have to reach the edges of your mat. You might also bring your toes to touch right back behind you, creating a V shape. And if you're ready, you could begin to send the hips back toward the heels. However, if your hips don't touch the heels, that's totally okay. They don't have to. And if you would like to work with the blanket, you can go ahead and grab that now. Although you might prefer not to have a blanket, and that is also an option. As you come down into your child's shape, you might extend the arms out in front of you, perhaps bringing your forehead to rest on the floor. Or you might prefer to leave your gaze up, and in which case it might feel welcome to stack your fists right in front of you, perhaps resting your forehead on your fists or maybe your chin. You choose. There's no wrong choice here. The choice is yours, and it is totally just dependent upon your comfort level, your sense of safety, and what is going to allow you to feel supported. So those are the deciding factors here, is what is going to allow me to feel supported in this moment. And so as you find your way there, whether you are in child's shape or not, perhaps you are still in a seated shape or any other shape of choice. Wherever you are, I welcome you to begin tuning in to this present moment, perhaps by noticing where your body is touching the floor. Starting to notice what's underneath you. Is it a yoga mat? Is it a blanket? Can you feel it? Or perhaps you can just feel the weight of your body starting to settle into what's beneath you. You might scan the outline of your body,
Simply bringing into your awareness your physical being. And as we're here for the next 5 to 7 rounds of breath, I'd like to offer you a poem for contemplation. And this poem is by Kimberly Rodriguez. And she writes, "Stop and take a breath. Regenerate your lungs with fresh air. And let that remind you how full of life you are in this moment and this time." Stop and take a breath. Regenerate your lungs with fresh air. And let that remind you how full of life you are in this moment, in this time. If it feels welcome to you, you might even create an affirmation as a simple reminder for your practice. Perhaps it is, "I am full of life. I am full of life." Or maybe it's, "I can stop and take a breath." Anytime you become maybe overwhelmed, or tired, or perhaps your mind wanders, you might just simply say, "I can stop and take a breath. I can come back to my body, my breath, my practice." And so with that, I welcome you to shift your awareness into your breath. And you don't have to force your breath to change. You don't have to force yourself to take bigger breaths or slower breaths. You can just stick with your natural breath. If that feels supportive in this moment, if that's what feels organic, you can just stay here. There's no need to force your breath to be something that it's not. And so you might choose to stay here in child's pose or whichever shape you have chosen for yourself. And if you are ready to begin moving, you might begin to meet me in a tabletop shape. So finding your way onto all fours. And here, you could leave your blanket. There's no need to move it. If this is still feeling really safe and supportive, let's keep using it. If you feel like it's getting in the way, you can go ahead and just place it to the side. So the choice is yours. Also, if being in a tabletop does not feel welcome as we come into our cat-cows and barrel rolls, you can also do these exact same shapes from a seated position. And so I'll show you here in tabletop and I'll show you in seating. So as you come into tabletop, if you prefer this shape, you might place your hands about shoulder distance apart. However, if your wrists are feeling really tender, it might actually be helpful to walk them forward just a little bit. It just kind of takes some of the angle off of your wrist. So your choice here. The knees might find themselves underneath the hips. And as we start to connect with our breath, maybe just by taking one natural breath in and out. 2 options here. You might begin to inhale and allow the stomach to come down towards the earth and creating this big circle with your spine. Your body can go off to one side. And then as you exhale, curling it up towards the sky. And then over to the opposite side and back down toward the earth. So this is basically one big circle with your spine, also known as a barrel roll or spinal circles, whatever you want to call it. So this is one option. Another option is to take a cat-cow. So you could inhale, allow the stomach, the spine to come down towards the earth. Maybe here you even lift your gaze. And then as you exhale, you might begin to draw the spine up towards the sky, perhaps even drawing your gaze in toward your body as well. So you choose what is going to feel best to your body today. And if you are in a seated shape, literally the exact same movements. You could inhale for a big spinal circle. Maybe the hands can support you by coming to your legs, starting to move in a circle. And these circles, wherever you're at, can be as small or as big as you want them to be. There's no particular size requirement. They can be at whatever pace you want. They could be fast, they could be slow. Same thing with your cat-cows. Even if you're seating, you can inhale, draw the chest forward, only as much as you feel comfortable, and exhale, send the spine back. You could even allow the chin to come down toward the chest if that is welcome. So as you work in whatever capacity it feels best to you, then you can also change the shape of your circles. If you're making spinal circles, you might even start moving in the opposite direction. Being curious here, noticing how it feels to change directions. Do the sensations change when you move in a different way? And we'll start to finish up here with our last 1 to 2 rounds of breath. Slowly coming back to center. I'll meet you right here in a tabletop. And here we'll do something a little bit different that we haven't explored too much. And from tabletop, you might begin to extend your right leg back as we just prep for this next shape, perhaps placing your right foot on the floor. And option here to kind of rock as the ball of your feet, or your foot rather, one foot, is on the floor. Perhaps you can tune into the sensation of your weight shifting back and forth and the stretch happening in your extended leg, your foot that is attached to your extended leg. For one last breath. Okay, so with your extended leg back behind you, I'm using my right leg, so I'll just guide from there. You could allow your right leg, your extended leg, to come back at an angle, drawing the right knee to the earth, right behind the left knee. So I'll show you what this looks like from behind as well. Your leg extends, whichever one you prefer. You can just kind of float it on over toward your leg that is still supporting you. Bend at the knee so that it's like you're sitting in a chair and your legs are crossed over one another. And if this doesn't feel welcome to your body, you could simply stay in just a tabletop. Okay, so from here, taking a moment to notice, this might be a very different shape than what we're used to. And just kind of noticing what's happening in the body. Do we need to shift or alter anything to allow our body to be supported? So making the adjustments needed. And then planting your right hand. So if your right leg was extended, it'll be your right hand that plants. An option here to inhale and start peeling your left hand up and open towards the sky. So this is a big twist. It's kind of like we're wringing out our spine, but it doesn't have to be rigid or even intense. It can be gentle, it can be soft. And if you're pregnant, or if this twist doesn't feel welcome to your spine for any reason, you can change the twist and go the opposite way. And notice how there's a bit more space here. So there's a difference between turning into the twist and turning away from the twist, which we're still twisting, but there's a bit more space in the body. Great. So with your next breath in, you might start to find completion here. And with your exhale, you can start to bring your hand back down towards the earth. And keeping our twisted tabletop, if you will, or your standard tabletop, if that's where you're at, you could begin to walk the hands forward in front of you. And here you might even feel some engagement in your core, just to support the lower back. And option one is to find kind of like a variation of puppy pose here. And you might allow your chest to come down towards the earth, and the chest won't necessarily touch the mat, but you might even place your forehead on the mat. So this is option one. Option two, you could lift your gaze and look at your hands. And if your right leg was extended, you'll walk your hands to the right. If your left leg was extended, you'll walk your hands to the left. And taking a lateral stretch, so a side stretch here. So it's the same shape that we were just in this like modified puppy pose. However, we're walking the hands over to one side if you want to, because you could also stay at center. And so wherever you're at, taking maybe 2 rounds of breath, or as much as you need, to explore what kind of sensations are present in your body in this moment. What are you feeling? And where are you feeling it? And after your second round of breath, you can choose for yourself if you'd like to stay here longer, or if you're ready to come out of it, you could lift the head to look at the hands, walk the hands back to center if they aren't already, and then back toward you. And then extending your leg again, same leg, and coming back into a tabletop. Option here to either stretch out, maybe take a few ankle rolls, or you might even find a child's shape, child's pose, that allows you a moment of rest to observe any changes in the body. One to two more breaths, whether you are in just organic movement or in a child's pose. Observing. It might not even be a physical change. It might be an energetic, an internal change. And if so, what is it? If you're ready to take the other side,
You might begin to shift yourself forward. I'll meet you back in a tabletop. And this time we'll extend the opposite leg. So for me, that's my left leg. And you could take a moment before rushing into the shape. You could take a moment to bring the ball of the left foot to the mat. Perhaps you shift back and forth. Maybe noticing the toes stretching in a way that they might not often stretch. You might even feel an opening in the back of the leg. And with your next inhale, you could come back to stillness, back to center if you're ready for it. And if you'd like to take the twist, you could allow your extended leg to go over, back behind your leg that is stabilizing you, and bend the knee. For me, that's my left knee. You might even adjust if you notice that you're kind of off to the side. You could even move the knees so that they are in your midline, right underneath you, if that feels a bit more stable. And so here, option one, if you would like a closed twist, if your left leg was extended, it would be your left hand that stays on the floor. As we breathe in and exhale, you might draw your right arm up and reach it towards the sky. The open twist would be the opposite direction. So twisting in whichever direction feels best to you, because there is no right or wrong. It is strictly what feels most supportive to you right now. What is going to nourish you in this moment? And can we take a breath here? Can we stop and take a breath? Filling our lungs with air. Noticing that we are alive in this moment. Beginning to release your hand down whenever you decide to. And you might continue to stay in this twisted tabletop, if you will. An option here to draw the spine in, the navel in towards the spine. Engage in the core, maybe at half strength. And if you want, you could choose to walk your hands forward. Maybe you bring your forehead to the mat. Or perhaps you decide to walk your hands toward the side. So if it was your left leg that was extended, then you would walk your hands to the left and vice versa. So you choose, do you stay at center? Do you come out to the side and take a lateral stretch? You choose, this is your body. Only you know what you feel. Only you are in your body. Option to take 1 or 2 rounds of breath. And you can decide for yourself if you want to stay here longer, or if you're ready to leave, you could lift your head to look at your hands, walk your hands back to center and back toward you. And we can start to unravel, taking any movements here that feel welcome, or maybe moving directly into stillness if that's what your body is asking for. So you might take a child's shape, or you might move organically. Option 2, take 1 or 2 more rounds of breath here of your choice of movement or stillness. And giving your body and your heart a moment to integrate what you just experienced. We can stop and take a breath. We can stop and feel. And you could continue enjoying this pause, or you might decide, if you're ready for movement, to meet me in a tabletop. And here we'll begin to find our way into a forward fold. So option 1, you could draw a foot forward and then the other coming into a forward fold. Or if that doesn't feel like there's enough space for you to move in your body, you could walk your hands back, come to a kneeling shape, step 1 foot forward, use your hand on your knee to kind of stabilize yourself, and then step the other foot forward, and then come into a forward fold. All right. So as you find your way there, no rush, you could adjust your stance as needed, taking a moment and noticing here that you can micro bend your knees, or you can add a deep bend into your knees. It really just depends on how your body is feeling. Here you could also utilize blocks as we come into our first halfway lift. If you don't have blocks, that's okay. You could place your hands on your shins. And with your inhale, or when you're ready to, you could lengthen through the arms, through the spine, almost like you're creating a tabletop with your back. And then if you're ready to, you could exhale and fold right back down. Hands can come to the floor, or maybe even resting them on blocks if you prefer that they not dangle. And with your next inhale, if you're ready to, you could bend into the knees and rise to standing all the way up. As you exhale, your hands could come down either to heart center or to your sides. As we just take a pause. If you feel a little wobbly, you could open your eyes so you can orient yourself, adjusting your stance as needed. And if you're ready to continue moving, we can begin to come into a standing shape that feels strong. So checking into your stance, really feeling into your feet, maybe even allowing your feet to spread out, your toes to spread out a little bit more in a way that you're really taking up space unapologetically. All right. So here we're going to be working a little bit on balance. And if you want, you could even bring your hand to a wall, just have it within reach. And you might not use it, or if at any point you do want to use it, you could just reach your hand out and just know that you're right here next to it. Okay. So finding your stable stance. And if it helps, you could even stare straight ahead and find a focal point, an unmoving focal point, and that can help with balance. So we'll start here, option 1. I'm going to start on my right side. You could follow me, or you could start on your opposite side, but I'm going to guide from the right. So option 1, you could begin to shift your weight into your left foot and start to draw your right toes to connect with the mat. Here, you might notice if your core has engaged to stabilize you. And if it hasn't, you might even place your hands on your core if it's helpful to give these muscles a little bit of a reminder. Hey, I need you to help me out here with my balance. So this is option one. You can stay right here. Option two is to draw the right knee up into somewhat of like a 90-degree angle. And again, reminding the core, hey, can you help me out here? I need some help balancing. I need you to do your work. So this is option two. And you can choose to stay right here, or if you'd like to incorporate the twists that we're focusing on in today's class, you might begin to inhale, place your left hand on your right knee. And as you exhale, you might begin to draw your right shoulder back, perhaps reaching your right hand back. Great. And so whether you have your right knee lifted or maybe your right toes are on the mat, either way, you can still take the twist if you want to. So wherever you're at, can we be all there? Maybe your gaze moves to the right over your right shoulder, or you might explore taking your gaze back past your right hand. So if you stare exactly at your right hand, balance might be a little bit rough, but if you stare past it at something that's not moving, that might be helpful. Great. So wherever you're at, can we take one more breath here? If you fall out, that's okay. If you're wiggling, that's okay. Can we embrace the wiggles like I am wiggling right now? That's all right. And if you're in the twist, you could come back to center. And option one, you could bring the right foot back down to the earth, or option two, you could start to swim your right heel back. Maybe you reach for your right foot with your right hand, coming into a quad stretch. Your left hand could kind of be out to the side if you want, could even be over your stomach. And if the right heel isn't reaching enough that we can grab it with our hand, that's okay. If your body is not ready for that stretch, you could simply just hold it wherever it's at. Maybe it's here in another 90-degree angle. That's okay. We're still getting the stretch. We're still getting a sensation that we can tune into. So can we do that now? Can we pay attention? Where am I feeling this in my body? For one last breath. All right, and if you're ready to release, option to do so. Your standing leg is probably burning and speaking to you like mine is, so you can shake it out if you want. You can take a few ankle rolls before we come back to stillness. And then when you feel ready, you might take a pause. I welcome you to really focus in on your feet here, focus in on your stance and the feeling of your feet touching the mat beneath you. Does one foot feel heavier than the other? Does one leg feel longer than the other? And we'll take the other side when you're ready. So find a stance that feels right to you, a stance that you can feel stable in. And then you might start to shift your weight into your right foot or the opposite leg, whichever one you did last time. And you could start to bring your left toes to the mat. Option to stay here, or you might lift your left leg at a 90-degree angle, give or take. Option to stay right here, or if you'd like to add the twist, you could start to breathe in Perhaps placing your opposite hand on your opposite knee, so your right hand to your left knee. And as you exhale, you might start to draw the left shoulder back, perhaps even reaching the left arm back. If you are wobbling, that's more than welcome. The wobbles are welcome, the wiggles are welcome. If it helps, you might find a focal point on the wall or somewhere else that is unmoving and rest your gaze there. And can we stop and take a breath? If and when you're ready, you could come back to center. Option here to swim your foot back, maybe reaching for it with your hand, or perhaps just finding another angle here, drawing the left heel back wherever it ends up. Can we use this moment of effort and ease to remind us that we are very much alive? Can you feel your muscles heating up, doing lots of work to keep you stable? Using that sensation wherever it is to remind yourself, I am very much alive. I am present. I am here in my body. And releasing whenever you're ready. Option 2, move through your foot, your leg. My muscles are definitely warm and maybe also experiencing some burning sensations. That's all welcome. All the sensations are welcome. And so here I invite you to shake out a little bit. So you could shake out your hand, pick one hand, start to shake it out. Perhaps even adding it with an exhale, switching to your opposite arm, your opposite hand. And you don't have to force yourself to breathe deeply here, but if it feels natural, if it naturally comes up and your body just wants to exhale, you can do that here too. And then switching to your leg, just one leg. Maybe even feeling the muscles that we're just doing lots of work here. Maybe receiving a little bit of the shakeout. Maybe it feels good. Maybe it feels interesting. And then switching to the other leg. And shaking also helps with regulating the nervous system, which is why we're doing this. It helps regulate the nervous system because it helps release trauma and it helps our body come back to homeostasis. So we're doing lots of neural processing today in this class and also lots of releasing. So be gentle with yourself, have some compassion for whatever is coming up. And after you're done shaking, you could come back to center. Just pausing wherever you find yourself. Maybe even placing one hand over your heart and one over your abdomen if it feels welcome. Or you might choose to leave your hands wherever they are. And we'll take another 1 to 2 breaths here, bringing our affirmation to mind. I am alive. Or maybe it was, I can stop and take a breath. I am here right now. I am here in my body. I am here in this moment. I am here. I am here. I am here. And if you're ready to begin moving into our final shapes of class, you might invite, or you might join me for inhaling and reaching the arms up. And as you exhale, you could begin to find a forward fold. You might utilize your blocks here. As we inhale, hands come to the shins or the blocks to find a halfway lift. And when you are ready to release, you could find your way right back down. And planting the hands on the floor or the blocks, if you feel like you need a little bit more room, you can use these as well. Stepping one foot back and then the other, bringing our knees down to the earth. And I invite you to find a pigeon pose. So I'm going to walk us through that. You could here, this is going to take I'm going to show you two different ways. The first way is going to take a little bit more core work to get into it, but it doesn't require it to stay in the shape. You could extend one leg back. So I'm going to extend my right leg. I'm going to engage my core just so that I can pick up my left knee and draw my left ankle to the back of or towards the back of my right wrist. It's not touching. And then I'll release my right knee, release my body down to the earth, untuck my right toes, and come into pigeon. Now, this is going to provide some most likely very intense sensations in your hips. So if this feels like, wow, this is a lot, maybe more than what I actually want to experience at the moment, then you could take your left ankle, whichever ankle's in front, and just draw it back toward you a little bit. And you might notice that that creates a bit more space for your hip to ease into the stretch rather than the stretch being so big and intense. So that was option one. Option two is to come into a seated shape. And if you like option one, you can just stay there while I demo this one. And have your left leg crossed in front of your right. And then here, we would just take a forward fold. You might start to just walk your hands forward, stopping wherever you want to stop. So you could have your hands very close to you, maybe a little bit farther away, and you can experiment where to place your hands that allow you to feel the desired amount of sensation in your left hip. So two choices here. We're targeting the exact same area, and it's strictly whatever feels most welcome to your body. And if you are in the version of pigeon pose that has one leg back and extended, another option is to bring your elbows to the floor so that you're not having to hold yourself up. You could even utilize a block to rest your forehead if that's helpful. And here I invite you to explore whichever shape that you're in, whichever version, for the next 7 to 8 rounds of breath, making any adjustments needed, allowing yourself to find your version of this shape. The shape is meant to fit your body, not the other way around. Your body is not meant to be molded into or for the shape.
The shape is meant for you, for your body. So that means you can adjust anything you want here. You can utilize any props you want, such as the block underneath your forehead, or if your back knee on the earth is feeling in pain, maybe you could also place a blanket underneath your back knee to provide a little bit of comfort, a little bit of cushion. And here, as we start to finish up the last few breaths on this side, I offer you a gentle reminder to be compassionate, to meet whatever comes up with compassion, to meet each sensation with kindness. And also remembering that if there's ever emotions that come up that are asking you to leave this shape, you can also honor that. You don't have to force yourself to stay here, because this shape will always be here another time. And so if you're ready to take the next side, if you are in option 1, you could begin to lift your head and walk your hands back. You might even sit back on your hip and allow your back leg to come forward. If you are in the seated option number 2, you could walk your hands back, come back to a seated shape. And here, wherever you're at, you could also extend your legs, perhaps move through your ankles. Just giving your body a moment to integrate what you just experienced before we rush off. And if you're ready for the next side, you could choose here if you want option 1 or option 2. If you want option number 2, which is the seated option, you would change the cross of your legs and place your right leg in front and your left leg in back if you want to switch hips. If you want option 1, same thing here. You could come into a tabletop, and this time your left leg would extend, tucking the toes for stability and engaging your core as you draw your right ankle forward, your right foot towards the back of your left hand, and then allowing your body to settle into the mat. And remembering here, if having your right ankle so high up, it's almost creating like this 90-degree angle. If that's like really big in our bodies, we can choose to reduce the angle. So that means drawing the ankle back more toward you. So instead of this 90-degree angle, it's more of a, well, it's a lot smaller of an angle, but it might feel a bit more spacious if that's what your body is needing right now. And then option to stay up on your hands, or option to come onto the elbows. Maybe you utilize a block, or if you don't have a block, you could also stack your fists on top of one another and rest your forehead on your fists. As we begin to settle in here for the next 7 to 8 breaths. This is our last shape before our final resting time. You are here. You are right here in this moment. You are in your body. You are here. And with our final few breaths, I invite you to notice whatever there is to notice about this shape and how you're experiencing it in your body. What do you feel? Where do you feel it? And you might choose to stay here longer if this shape is still serving you. Or if you're ready to leave the shape, you could begin to come out, walking your hands back. Perhaps sitting back on your hip if you have your leg extended behind you, and perhaps you extend your legs forward for just a moment, moving through in any way that feels welcome. Maybe even shaking out the legs a little bit. Here we have a few options for our final resting time. Today, I am welcoming you to take a supported resting shape. So, 3 options. 1, you might choose to explore legs up the wall, and I'll show you that one right now. So here you could move a blanket or a mat against the wall and come on over and bring one hip towards the wall. Doesn't matter which side. And your hands could come behind you. And you could begin to move down onto your elbows as your legs come up the wall. I like to have a blanket underneath me. It just feels a little bit better for my spine, but you could have a yoga mat. You could have nothing. It's whatever you prefer. So here's option 1. And this legs up the wall pose is it's very helpful for down regulating the nervous system, since we just released and did so much. This really helps our body shift into our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest. Option 2 is to have a chair or a couch or a coffee table, as I was mentioning at the beginning of class, and have your feet resting on your support. So you come lay on your back. I don't have a chair with me, but I can demonstrate. And you would drape your legs over the chair. And this is a very supportive shape, especially for your spine. If you have any lower back tension, this shape might feel very welcome. So here underneath your calves, right at your knees, you would have something that your legs could rest on, whatever that may be. And option 3 is any other resting shape you want. So if neither of those options feel welcome, you could choose to lay on your stomach, your side, to stay seated, to explore lying on your back, maybe stretching out. And as you come into whatever resting shape allows you to feel safe, you might trace the outline of your body. One more time, checking in, noticing, are there any changes, any adjustments that could be made that would allow you to be even just 10% more comfortable, just 10% more supported. Stop and take a deep breath. Regenerate your lungs with fresh air and let that remind you how full of life you are in this moment, in this time. All of our effort and focus is done and complete, and now we can rest. And I welcome you to be here in this resting shape for the next 3 to 4 minutes. And I'll keep track of the time. And even though I'm going to be quiet for those 3 to 4 minutes, just know that I'm right here with you. And I'll let you know when that time is complete. If it feels like you are just getting started in this time of rest, please give yourself permission to stay here as long as you need to. There is no rush to leave this time. If you are ready or you do need to leave this time of rest, and your legs are up the wall, you might start to plant your feet on the wall, drawing the knees in toward the chest. Perhaps holding your knees here, your legs here with your hands, giving your body a moment to start finding your way out. If you have your legs draped over a support such as a chair, you might start to draw the knees in as well. If you are laying on your back or your stomach, you might start to roll over to one side and just pause in the fetal shape. And here in the fetal position, laying on your side, just noticing how you feel for one breath. And in your own timing, you could begin to press yourself up. And I'll meet you in any seated shape. Option to rest your hands wherever they'd like to rest. Perhaps even meeting me with hands at heart center. I invite you to take one collective breath with me, whether that be with your natural breath or a big sigh out. We'll start with an exhale. And we can breathe in together here. Thank you for allowing me to guide you. My hope is that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. If you have any questions about this session or this whole series or our practices in general, please feel free to reach out via email or commenting below on this video, and I will be sure to get back to you. Thank you.